Startuprad.io, your podcast and YouTube blog covering the German startup scene with news, interviews, and live events.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Joe from Startuprad.io, your startup podcast and YouTube blog from Germany. I'm right now here in my very new, very own study. As you can see, I'm just moving in. It's a little bit cramped in the back, but we have to make the recording today because today it was announced that Inga 1 is the startup of the month by Frankfurt Forward. We have a non-paid media partnership with them, and therefore I had to record today at the last opportunity this interview, and I just did it because I was moving house, and therefore I do have Corinna here with me. Hey, welcome.
Hi everybody, it's Corinna from Inga.
We already talked about Inga. In the past, I did an interview with one of your co-founders, Kim. We link down in the show notes, guys. Please be forgiving with me. That was a time when I was still trying how to figure out to do live streams from live events, and it didn't perfectly match with the screen and all the stuff, but nonetheless, we did a very nice interview with him. You guys are an HR tech, but before we get into the company, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get the idea? How did you end up at Inga? Was there one point where you said, no, I want to do a startup? Or was there one point where you said, oh, that's a problem I want to solve?
That's a very good question, and thanks for being able to tell you a little bit about my passion. I have an HR background. I studied business economics, actually, and then I worked here in Frankfurt for an American investment bank. Am I allowed to tell where I worked? I worked for JP Morgan, and I did the graduate recruiting part there. So I was trying to find finance students and attract them to become investment bankers here in Frankfurt, but also in other locations. And I've done that for 11 years. So I learned a lot of processes and structures in terms of recruiting, employer branding, and and how to treat young people and young talent. And when I realized after 2008, after the investment banking crisis, that several things had changed, my point was that the corporation world needs to kind of find a different approach on how to attract young talent, how to select young talent, and how to then form them during their career. And the corporate world was a little bit too slow for me. So I left that world 2015 with the eager vision to improve the world of recruiting and work by myself. So I founded my first company called CO3 Recruiting. And the aim there was to actually help young startups with their creative chaos, as I like to call it, and streamline that more with the structures and processes that I've learned in the corporative world. So I worked as HR architect on several projects, sometimes lasting only a few weeks, sometimes up to 1 year, where I accompanied and advised startups and founders on how to professionalize, mainly after a big investment round. That was a lot of fun, a steep learning curve, but I realized that my impact was not big enough. So I was still eager to find a real digital transformative way of recruiting. And then I met Kim and Francisco, my founders from back then in 2017. And we then had the idea to use social media and chatbots to have a new approach on attracting talent for employers. And then almost 2 years later, we are now here in Frankfurt in the Mindspace with a team of 12.
That sounds very good. Congratulations to that. I got one more question because you said you mainly advised founders how to deal with HR after a big financing round. What are the main mistakes you've seen there? Because our viewers and our listeners are all from an entrepreneurial background, so it would be very interesting for them to learn from mistakes.
Well, we might be able to do an own podcast on that, actually, but I try to be brief. There are several aspects. First of all, the legal aspect, in terms of that young startups need to make sure that they are on point with labor contracts, with all the administrative tasks they need to actually provide and do. So that's one part that many don't really understand. For example, what's the difference between an intern and a working student in the German context? For social security and stuff like that. And some founders or some teams do not actually care. And then it was my task to actually make them aware of that there are rules about it. Okay. Second part is actually the recruiting part. And for me, it's always important that also young teams that try to move over 10 employees, that they have a real structured approach on finding out what kind of talent do I really need for the next, let's say, 6 months? What does the person need to bring to the table? How flexible does the person need to be? And then to develop a real strategy where to find those people and how to interview those people and how to interpret, how to kind of find out what the answer actually means in such an interview. And then the next thing is how to develop them. So to really have a structured approach on recruiting the right people and developing them internally. And the third part is actually that with a fast growth, often the team members are a little bit overwhelmed because they become team leaders too quickly without having a real training in or understanding what it means to lead other people or to delegate tasks. And also not every founder is a good manager. Many founders have a fantastic vision, a fantastic idea, and are brilliant in a specific product view, but maybe not the best managers or bosses. And so that is another aspect that I normally point a finger at. And I use the phrase HR architect. I kind of borrowed that from the software world because I come normally in as a generalist. And then I just point out, okay, this is an area where we need to bring in yet another specialist and work on it. And then my goal is a little bit like development aid. I come in, I show them how it works, I teach them, and then hopefully I leave a lot of knowledge, and then I go out and they can run by themselves. And then maybe if they grow even bigger, they then reach out a year after again, something like that. But I'm here to then leave again and have an improved company, hopefully.
Interesting phrase, development aid for HR in startups. Okay. Does Inga One also do this as well? Or what is your exact business model? What are you guys doing for your clients?
We have a new approach on actually attracting talent for companies. So we do social recruiting combined with a chatbot. So the first part is we attract people to positions to which they normally might not have applied, because we target passive seekers or those people that are not 100% happy in their job. And also from my private life and my previous experience, there are a lot of people out there who sit in a position or a job not 100% satisfied, but it's too hard or too much work to actually find a new possible job and to apply. And so the whole application process in many companies is way too complicated and not talent-centric. So that is one part that we have changed. We tailor-made make job campaigns on Instagram for the clients, but with our employer brand, which is called in German Traumberufe, Traumberufe Technik, Traumberuf Personal. It would be like dream jobs, and then dream jobs engineering, dream jobs human resources, so that we actually attract the people, the talent out there with their own passion for what they want to do 8 hours plus a day. Okay, and then so we find them via normal targeting. Of course, there is like machine learning and algorithms in the background, and then we kind of promise them that within 3 to 5 minutes, within a chatbot, they are able to find out more about the position, about the potential employer, and actually leave a short application with us. And then they go into the chatbot, and which is all like mobile optimized, of course. And then on the go, without needing to upload a CV or anything, they can actually learn about the position, as I said, the employer, and then answer questions like what kind of education level do you have? Have you experienced in this, that, and that? When will you be available? And all this information, including the contact data, is what we then provide to the client. So it's a little bit like active sourcing, automated active sourcing for employers.
So that means what at the end of the day your clients get, the potential employees, is like a list of people with the position, with a CV, with some background information, and you tell them those people are potentially interested in this position.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, kind of. So the client gets a list, and I would call it like a long list with candidates or with people definitely interested in a position, and with a short summary of talents that they have, like or skills that they have. And the skills have been discussed before with the client, with our customer, which are the most important skills that the person needs to bring. We do not provide a CV. And that is very important from my perspective at the moment, because that is one of the visions that I personally have, and that we as Inga have as well, is that within the next 5 years, we want to have developed the whole chatbot communication so far that we as HR people and employers do not need the standard CV anymore. Because, and that is something where I'm very passionate about, in the end, the way that we recruit at the moment is digital, but it is not transformed, because in the end, we took the old paper CV that people put on their like analog typing writer, and we just kind of put it on a word processor. We send it via email and not via snail mail anymore. And in the end, many employers print out the CV again to then read through the whole thing. It is
and
static.
then take physically notes on it and then hand it physically back to HR, right?
Yes, exactly. And I have to admit that in the end, it's super efficient because, like with the CV, I, with my experience, was able to, within, let's say, 5 seconds, scan the CV and know directly if the person, in theory, brings all the skills and the experience that I wanted to see. But I think nowadays, where we are not necessarily just skill-based in the selection process, we as HR, we as recruiters, we need to focus also on other skills and other things that the talent brings to the table, like flexibility, eagerness to learn, to develop new skills, thinking out of the box, like all the things that actually makes us humans unique. And that is also one of the points. We as Inga, we try to automate all the things that are possible, to then make qualitative HR work able again. Because many of my HR colleagues out there in companies or being self-employed, they spend so much task with repetitive administrative tasks that the real quality selection, meaning the dialogue one-to-one, human to human, is set aside, and we want to bring that back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How are you guys making money? You charge the potential employers for the effort you put in, or just for the output you're actually delivering to them?
We charge the client for the work that we bring in. So it's a little bit, you can maybe compare it with all those job boards out there, like Stepstone, Monster, Indeed, you name it, where you have like the classical post and pray. Or even like with LinkedIn or Xing, or even Facebook jobs and Google jobs, where you are able to actually pay for posting for a certain time your job ad. And that is what we do as well. So we develop a completely tailored campaign for the client for 4 weeks, ideally actually for 3 months. Because we have then the chance to, with all the performance tracking that we do, that it's actually not post and pray, but it is learn and adapt what we do, okay? So we normally have a campaign run 2 weeks, and then we start to adjust it. And so ideally, a client would come to us for 3 months with like one certain position, and then we can adapt and change the outcome in the end and our approach. And that is what the client pays for. And then in the end, we do not, and I'm very honest about that and very open, we do not guarantee a hire. We guarantee contact to talents that might not have applied otherwise. And that is what we promise. And then in the end, if then a client can hire or fill 3 or 4 positions out of one campaign, then it's fantastic. And we don't charge extra for that.
Mm-hmm. Does your experience so far imply you get a better rate for hiring with your approach than post and pray?
That is, well, the feedback from our clients is, or our experience with the clients is that sometimes they approach us being their last resort and being their last hope. So often they come to us with very difficult positions where we also have them to say, and we are also always very open with it, that we are no magicians. If there are no electricians or no opticians in a certain area in the Black Forest or in Hamburg or wherever, then we cannot just make them appear, but we can at least offer a different approach on trying to attract those people out there. Because one of our focus is not necessarily the academic world, because for that we have professional like networking such as Xing and LinkedIn, like we have the headhunter world out there, which is mainly focusing on highly paid yearly salaries. But like a neglected group of talent definitely is the Fachkräfte in Germany. All those apprenticeships specialists where...
For everybody who doesn't know this, in Germany, there's a big system of vocational training where you train 2 or 3 years to get a final, almost like a bachelor's degree in a certain area, like electrician, optician, carpenter, whatever is out there. There are several hundreds of them, like hair cutter, hairdresser. And that is basically the people you're targeting. And then they can even advance doing like Meister, which is literally translated to a master's. And then they are like, it used to be in the past that for some certain areas, you needed such a certification to start your own business.
Thanks for the explanation. I often forget that outside of Germany, the concept of an apprenticeship, of a vocational training does not really exist. And I think that is one of the reasons why Germany has such a big economic success. Or has had because of that vocational training, because people doing manual labor are highly trained and highly skilled people in Germany. And unfortunately, that is a development that I have seen in the past, that young people are more tending to do a bachelor's and master's degree at university than actually starting a vocational training and doing and learning about labor labor, like manual labor. And that is something where Germany still is, in terms of industry, in Mittelstand, in small and medium-sized companies, hidden champions. Those are like many of our clients, where they are like world leaders in producing one specific little part for, let's say, the automotive industry or paper productions or even machines. Yeah, and no one knows about them in terms of employer branding, but they are the one big player, and like 90% of all the machines producing something around the world is from this one company. And they need specifically skilled people, not necessarily, as I said, the academics. And that is where we are really, really good at, because this talent, these people, they are on social media more than actually on Xing and LinkedIn. So meaning that is why we target specifically at the moment Facebook and Instagram, because that is where we can find them. And that is also one of the reasons why we do not target the CVs at the moment, because these talent normally do not sit at a PC, at a computer all day long, working with Word or other word processors, and they might not have their CV ready, but they are like super fantastic in what they do in operating a specific machine, for example.
Mm-hmm. That sounds pretty good. You are Startup of the Month May 2019 for Frankfurt Forward. Congratulations to that. That's a high-end panel that you had to go through. And it means something if you win this award. Going a little bit back to this, I was wondering why you guys are in Frankfurt and what Frankfurt means for you personally as well as for the company.
I have to admit that I'm originally from the Black Forest. That is an area in the southern part of Germany. And I then moved to Mainz, which is a city near Frankfurt, and I lived there for 15 years. And I actually commuted to Frankfurt for 11 years while working for JP Morgan, because I never wanted to move to Frankfurt, because the reputation of Frankfurt was not that good. And I mainly only kind of came in to like the business area, and I did not really give Frankfurt a chance as a living area.
I always like to say Frankfurt is very beautiful, has very beautiful places. Unfortunately, it's very good in hiding them.
Exactly. And then the beautiful places and the beautiful living areas, they then started to show themselves to me after I gave it a chance. Yeah. So over the last 2 years, because most of my startup clients back then, and the startup scene in Frankfurt is of course a little bit is like the center is in Frankfurt of the Rhein-Main startup area. So I spent a lot of time in Frankfurt, and I found out that it's a real jewel. It's a fantastic city. It has wonderful areas to live, a lot of parks, a lot of green zones. It is small. You can bike everywhere, but yet it has culturally and economically everything that you want. Yeah, it has like in terms of restaurant scene, no matter what kind of restaurant type of from the world you wanna eat, you can go there. It's super international in terms of people. I don't know how many nationalities actually live in Frankfurt, but it's super diverse. It's a very open city, but it also is super professional. And professional in terms of it has a lot of bankers, consultants, and lawyers. In terms of that, a very high standard of professional work ethics from the old school. And it is combined now with the new spirit of startups. A lot of co-working places have opened in the last 2 to 3 years, I think. Many meetups, many events for startups, from startups, but also the city of Frankfurt and official groups have started to actually support the whole startup system and ecosystem in Frankfurt very much. So it's a perfect combination for a startup and also for me as a private citizen to spend time in Frankfurt.
Well, only thing left for me to say is thank you very much. Appreciate the interview. Everybody who wants to everybody who likes to learn more, go down here in the show notes. You'll find all the links and things we discussed, like further reading on vocational training and stuff like this.
That's all, folks. Find more news, streams, events, and interviews at www.startuprad.io. Remember, sharing is caring.